Right, I've got some good news today, folks. It seems like Eddie Howe to Celtic has moved a good bit closer. We will chat about Howe in detail in this video and also the people who could be joining him at Celtic, but have you subscribed to the channel yet? Now, the reason I say that is that we are motoring with subscribers every single day. More of you join the wonderful collection that is 67 Hail Hail. It doesn't cost a penny. I don't know if I say that enough. Maybe you're new to YouTube. Maybe you just get the fear every time you hear the word subscribe. That word usually means you need to pay something. This doesn't cost a penny. What you get in return is every single video we post. You won't miss out on any videos, especially if you click the alarm bell. You also won't miss out on the Eddie Howe announcement live party that I am genuinely campaigning for on the channel. So if you don't want to miss out on any of that, you want to give us a wee bit of support without paying a penny, please subscribe. Now, trusted source of Celtic news, Stephen McGowan, has provided a very interesting and positive update on the potential of Eddie Howe coming to be Celtic's next manager. This was in the Daily Mail, for which I have secured a copy, and I'm just going to quickly go through some of the bullet points in the piece written by Stephen McGowan. So Howe is close to being Celtic's next manager. He is piecing together his Celtic backroom team with talks already underway. A move for Bournemouth technical director Richard Hughes, who Howe wants to head up player recruitment, hangs in the balance. Mark Burchill is also wanted, as are current Bournemouth coaches Simon Weatherston and Stephen Purchase. So just as we've been saying the whole way through on 67 Hail Hail, this one is happening. So who are the mystery men named in Stephen McGowan's report? Mark Burchill isn't really much of a mystery to Celtic fans. He did, of course, play for the club between 1998 and 2001, right at the start of his career. Don't mean to show off my young age, but he is a bit of a mystery to me. I wasn't around at that stage, didn't see him playing for Celtic. I have seen that famous fifth goal in the 5-1 win over Rangers in 1998, and I think that's probably his crowning moment in a Celtic shirt. Let me know in the comments below, you older viewers, if I've got that one wrong. But yeah, Mark Burchill, mainly a sub for Celtic in those years. I think he scored 20 odd goals. Eventually moved away permanently down south to Portsmouth, and that is important because that is where he came into contact with, hopefully, our soon-to-be manager, Eddie Howe. Now, rather interestingly, both Howe and Mark Burchill suffered horrific knee injuries in their time at Portsmouth. Burchill did go into management after retiring. He managed Livingston, was sacked there after, I think, about a year, 18 months, and Howe offered him the chance to go down to Bournemouth and get almost work experience. They clearly made an impression on each other because shortly after, Burchill was announced as Bournemouth's chief scout, and he's been in that role ever since. So the important things here are that Burchill's background is in recruitment as opposed to coaching, as much as he did manage Livingston. I'm pretty sure if he was coming into Celtic, he would be coming in a recruitment role, so something to do with scouting, possibly head scout, chief scout, something like that. Although it is interesting to note where Richard Hughes would fit into all this. Not quite clear what Burchill's role would be. Maybe it hinges on whether Hughes can be prized away from Bournemouth or not. Horrific career-ending injuries seem to be quite a theme of Eddie Howe's coaching staff and the people he works with. Quite interesting to ponder how John Kennedy would fit into that. It would certainly seem like John Kennedy could be quite a good fit. He's a similar age to the people Eddie Howe works with. Eddie Howe's coaching staff tend to be very young, similar ages to him. Most of the people we mention in this video are early 40s, so chances are it'll be quite a young coaching team at Celtic, which I think in general is a good thing. The next person we're going to touch on is a guy called Stephen Purchase, or Purchie, as Eddie Howe refers to him in a video I watched on YouTube. More on that in a wee second. Purchase spent the best part of 2 decades at Bournemouth. He's still at the club. He went first as a player, but suffered a horrific double leg break in early 2012. As is often the case with players who suffer terrible injuries, he tried to limp on, quite literally, make a career for himself, but it wasn't to be. He was eventually given the doctor's orders to hang up his boots, went into coaching. He was made development boss by Eddie Howe at Bournemouth. He also managed the under-21 team before being appointed as a first-team coach in 2017. The following year, he was awarded his UEFA Pro licence, which is the highest accolade for a coach in football. So he's clearly got the qualifications, he's got the credentials. There's actually quite an interesting video on Bournemouth's YouTube about Purchase just after he'd announced his retirement from football. It's effectively a testimonial video, and it features a lot of big names, people like Harry Redknapp, Michael Carrick, Rio Ferdinand. They're all included, and everybody has a good word to say about Purchase. Now, I know these videos tend to be quite like obituaries and that everyone usually has a good thing to say about people, but he genuinely does seem to be quite a likeable guy. He's described as being meticulous, always well turned out, high standards, kind person. These are all good things, and I certainly think that the relationship between Eddie Howe and Stephen Purchase is quite an important one, and if we could have that at Celtic, that would obviously be a positive thing. I don't have quite as much on Simon Weatherston, although I definitely recognise the name from somewhere. I've worked out that I had him on LMA Manager 2003. What a game that was. You used to be able to build stadia and perfect your teams, and they had the live cup draws with Gary Lineker announcing them. That was just an incredible game. But yeah, information is a little bit scarce on Simon Weatherston. He did meet Howe during Howe's short stint at Burnley. He was then appointed as a first-team coach at Bournemouth in 2014, and he's been in that role ever since. So he's been at the club for a while. Would he jump ship and go to Celtic? The key here for me is that these people we've mentioned on this video are people that Eddie Howe has worked with in the past, and that, without wanting to speak for Eddie Howe, I'm sure he will trust. When Brendan Rodgers came to the club in 2016, he brought in people that he trusted. He brought in Chris Davies and Kolo Toure, among others. Now, obviously, the flip side of that is that when Rodgers left, he then gutted the Celtic backroom staff, and he took away Kolo Toure with him. He took away Glenn Driscoll. He, of course, took away Chris Davies, and Celtic were kind of left scratching their head a little bit, and that's maybe why we ended up in such a mess this season, because we then had to put together another backroom team, especially when Damien Duff moved on at the end of last season. So I just wonder if Celtic are wary of that happening again. The last thing we want to do is bring in a team that is all Eddie Howe, and then Eddie Howe takes that whole team away when he moves on to his next job, should he be a success. Now, another theory amongst the Celtic support that seems to have a fair bit of validity is that Celtic are going to have to wait until the end of Bournemouth's season before they can appoint anyone currently in roles at Bournemouth. All of the people we've mentioned on this video, other than Eddie Howe and John Kennedy, are currently employed by Bournemouth. So would they be happy to lose someone before the end of their season, especially when they are targeting a return to the English Premier League at the first time of asking? You may not be familiar with the English Championship. To be honest, I'm not an avid follower of the league, but I do know that Bournemouth are currently 4th in the table, and they will be taking part in the end of season playoffs. Now, the final of this at Wembley is currently scheduled for May the 29th, so that's over a month away. That's a good bit of waiting Celtic could have to do before they can maybe announce people who are currently employed at Bournemouth. And that's even if these people would want to move if Bournemouth were in the English Premier League. We obviously can't afford to wait around forever. Celtic will want to get a season ticket campaign out there as soon as possible. And ideally, I think almost crucially, they have to have Eddie Howe as part of that. I'm not sure the uptake would be quite as large without an Eddie Howe. So it's one to watch, definitely. Another one that I just want to throw out there, Eddie Howe has worked with Jason Tindall in all of his managerial jobs so far in his career. They've played together at Bournemouth. They've worked together as coaches and manager at Bournemouth. They even worked together in Howe's short stint at Turf Moor with Burnley. So it's interesting that he hasn't been mentioned at all about a possible move to Scotland. Now, the possible reasons for that are that Tyndall doesn't want to go back to being a number 2. He's had experience of managing Bournemouth this season. He was Eddie Howe's successor. Didn't go really well for him and he got sacked, although he didn't have a complete disaster given that they're still in with a chance of promotion. Tyndall is currently working in a short-term coaching role at Sheffield United, although he has been mentioned as a potential manager there. They're obviously without a manager at the moment, so does he have his eyes on being a manager as opposed to being an assistant? If that's the case, then short of Celtic appointing him as a manager, his chances of coming to the club are pretty small. But I do think it's interesting to note that Howe has always worked with Tyndall, and a lot of his success would no doubt be down to Tyndall. I do think it's important we get someone in that Eddie Howe trusts. I think these reports from Stephen McGowan are really positive and promising. Not quite sure we're going to get a definitive answer in the coming days or even in the coming weeks. This may drag out for a bit longer yet. I do think there's a sense of calm from both Celtic and Howe. This is happening. It may take a little bit of time, but it's going to happen, and Eddie Howe should be confirmed as Celtic's next manager ahead of next season.